Things end. They always have. They always will. You don't always want them to. You don't always feel ready, but readiness isn't what the universe consults when it moves. Entropy doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't bow to your preferences. It simply unravels everything that cannot hold its form, including the relationships you thought would last forever, including the versions of yourself you thought you'd always be, including the dreams that once felt solid in your hands. You live in a universe where disintegration is the default and structure is the brief, miraculous exception. Every connection, every bond, every intimacy is, on some scale, a temporary rebellion against cosmic drift, a momentary island in a sea of dissolution. But you forget this. You forget how fragile everything is, how temporary, how dependent on constant renewal, how easily a single shift, internal or external, can scatter the pieces you once trusted. Relationships end not because you failed, not because they were meaningless. They end because everything ends. And understanding this truth is not despair. It's liberation. It's clarity. It's sobriety. It's the beginning of learning how to love in a world that never stops falling apart. 1. The nature of endings. When a relationship collapses, you often imagine that something unnatural has happened, a fracture in the grand design, a violation of the narrative you plan. But endings are not intrusions. Endings are inheritances. They're built into the architecture of every moment. You only suffer more when you insist that the temporary should behave like the eternal. Still, it hurts. Of course it hurts. You're wired for attachment. You're wired for continuity. You're wired for stories that stretch toward a horizon. And when the story stops suddenly, when the person you shaped your days around is no longer shaping them with you, it feels like you've stepped off the planet and lost gravity. You keep reaching for what isn't there. You keep rehearsing conversations that no longer have a stage. You replay memories like they might rearrange themselves and give you a different outcome. You try to pretend you're not grieving, but you are, and you should be. Grief isn't evidence of failure. It's evidence of investment. It's the cost of caring. It's the bill you pay for building anything meaningful in a universe that guarantees impermanence. But here's the deeper truth. Your pain is not just about the loss of the other person. It's about the loss of the version of you that existed in their presence. When the relationship dies, a whole ecosystem inside you dies with it. The hopes, the routines, the assumptions, the mirror you use to confirm your identity. The ending forces you into a confrontation with yourself. A confrontation entropy has been preparing you for since the beginning. 2. Entropy as a teacher. Entropy is not cruelty. You're not being punished. You're being instructed. Because entropy is the reason growth exists at all. If nothing broke down, nothing would be rebuilt. If nothing dissolved, nothing new could be formed. If nothing ended, nothing would ever begin. Every collapsed relationship is a message from the universe, a reminder that you are allowed to evolve, a reminder that clinging is not the same thing as loving, a reminder that holding on to what is already dissolving only accelerates your suffering. Entropy forces you to release what can't continue, not because the universe is unkind, but because the alternative is stagnation. You cannot grow inside a structure that no longer supports your expansion. You cannot become yourself if you're trapped performing a version of you that kept someone else comfortable. You cannot thrive inside a connection that requires you to shrink. Yes, endings hurt, but staying in what is already dying hurts more. This is the mathematical reality of emotional existence. The cost of avoiding loss is greater than the cost of experiencing it. And if you pay attention, if you let entropy speak instead of resisting, you'll start to see that every ending is a doorway shaped like a wound. Pain doesn't erase the door. Pain is the door. 3. Pain as a pathway. Most people try to avoid pain as though avoiding it will make them safer. But avoidance doesn't create safety. Avoidance creates fragility. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is information. Pain is feedback from reality. Pain is a compass that points toward what needs attention, what needs healing, what needs releasing. If you numb it, you silence the message. If you outrun it, you extend the lesson. If you deny it, you deny yourself the chance to change. Your pain right now, the ache in your chest, the heaviness in your rib cage, the confusion in your mind, is not just emotional residue. It's the beginning of self-knowledge. Pain is the solvent that dissolves illusions. Pain shows you where you were pretending. Pain shows you where you abandoned yourself. Pain shows you what you compromised to keep the relationship functioning. Pain shows you what you failed to protect within you. And if you listen, if you lean into it instead of leaning away, you'll realize that your pain is telling you a story about your boundaries, your patterns, your beliefs, your needs, your future. Growth is not born from comfort. It's born from friction. It's born from collision. It's born from the dismantling of what no longer fits. Pain is the price of evolution, and evolution is worth the cost. 4. The relationship with yourself. When a relationship ends, you often rush to fill the gap. You scramble for distraction, for replacement, for validation, for anything that prevents you from being alone with yourself. But the period after an ending is sacred. It's not a void to escape. It's a space to inhabit. Because this is when you rediscover the most important relationship of your life, the one you have with yourself. This is where you meet the parts of you that were neglected. This is where you hear the voice you've been drowning out. This is where you start telling yourself the truth again. This is where you learn to become someone you can trust. You cannot form healthy relationships with others until you form one with yourself. You cannot expect others to respect you if you do not respect your own boundaries. You cannot expect others to treat you well if you tolerate mistreatment within your own inner dialogue. The external world mirrors your internal world. Every relationship you enter is a reflection of the one you have with yourself. So the question becomes, can you sit with yourself without reaching for escape? Can you listen to yourself without judgment? Can you hold yourself the way you wish someone else would hold you? Can you build a life that doesn't require someone else to complete it? Can you become the source of your own safety? Your healing begins when you stop outsourcing your worth, when you stop negotiating your needs, when you stop abandoning yourself to avoid being abandoned by someone else. 5. Boundaries. The architecture of self-respect. Healthy boundaries are not walls. They're not punishments. They're not threats. Boundaries are instructions for how you should be treated. They're the architecture of your emotional home. They protect what is precious. They keep what harms you at a distance. When your boundaries are unclear, your relationships become chaotic. People cannot respect limits they cannot see, and you cannot expect others to guess where your lines are. You must draw them. You must speak them. You must enforce them. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. Without boundaries, relationships decay under confusion. With boundaries, relationships either strengthen or they fall away. And here's the truth you already know, but don't always want to face. Relationships that collapse when you assert boundaries were never safe to begin with. Your boundaries don't scare the right people. They only scare the people who benefited from your lack of them. If someone leaves because you asked to be treated with respect, you didn't lose them. You removed what was misaligned. Entropy helped you do it. And yes, that's painful. But losing someone who cannot honor your boundaries hurts far less than losing yourself to keep them. 6. The radiance of reconstruction. You think the ending is the final chapter, but the ending is the blueprint. It shows you where the cracks were. It reveals the structural weaknesses. It exposes the pressure points you ignored. You rebuild differently after heartbreak. You rebuild stronger. You rebuild truer. You rebuild with a deeper understanding of what you value and what you can no longer tolerate. Pain strips away the unnecessary. Grief sharpens your priorities. Entropy clears the foundation so you can start again with intention. You are not meant to return to who you were. That version of you cannot survive the lessons you've learned. You're meant to become someone new, someone expanded, someone awake, someone grounded in reality rather than fantasy, someone capable of loving without losing themselves, someone capable of walking away when something breaks beyond repair, someone who trusts their intuition, someone who understands that endings are not failures. They are transitions. Entropy forces transformation. Your job is to cooperate with it. 7. The cosmic context of your heartbreak. Zoom out far enough and your heartbreak becomes part of a larger story. A story older than humanity. A story older than Earth. A story older than stars. Entropy governs galaxies. Entropy dismantles stars. Entropy transforms matter. Entropy recycles everything in existence. Your relationship ending is not separate from this cosmic law. It is an expression of it, a microcosm of universal behavior. You are not alone in endings. Everything ends. Everywhere. Always. What makes you unique is not that you experience loss, but that you can metabolize it into meaning, that you can reshape yourself around a fracture, that you can love again even after losing, that you can hold grief and hope in the same heart. You are part of a universe that continuously falls apart and continuously creates new forms from the ruins. Your new beginning is already forming, even if you can't see it yet, even if you don't feel ready, even if all you know right now is the ache. Creation hides inside destruction, and you are being remade. 8. An invitation to the new you. So here you are, at the intersection of pain and possibility, at the edge of what ended and the beginning of what could be. This is the moment that will shape you, not because you were abandoned, not because you were hurt, not because you lost someone you loved, but because you are choosing what happens next. You get to decide the meaning of this ending. You get to decide whether this becomes a wound that festers or a wound that reforms you. You get to decide whether you collapse into despair or rebuild with intention. You get to decide how deeply you're willing to know yourself. You get to decide how fiercely you will protect your peace moving forward. You get to decide the boundaries that will define your life. You get to decide how honestly you will love next time. You get to decide how courageously you will live. You have more power than you feel right now. You have more wisdom than you realize. You are stronger than your heartbreak wants you to believe. And if you allow yourself to grow through this, not around it, not away from it, but through it, you will emerge with a clarity that can only be earned by walking through fire. This is where you expand. This is where you evolve. This is where you step into the person you were always capable of becoming, not in spite of the ending, but because of it. 9. Conclusion. You are still becoming. You are not finished. You are not broken. You are not ruined. You are in motion. You are in transformation. You are in conversation with entropy itself. And you are learning, slowly, painfully, beautifully, that the things which fall apart often reveal the truths that hold you together. Your relationship ended, but you did not end with it. You are still here. You are still becoming. You are still capable of love, growth, healing, and wonder. Endings shape you, but you shape what they mean. And now, you get to decide who you are on the other side of all this. The choice is yours to make.